It's your Thursday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to have you guys back for another day. Lots to get to today, but a lot of it will be focused heavily on TJ Hockenson, the new tight end for the Vikings. He met with the media on Wednesday. A lot of other Vikings players talking on Wednesday as well. It's their big day of Access. I was out there with a lot of our other writers as well. We recorded an Access Vikings podcast if you want to hear some of that. I'm going to try not to repeat too much of that, but here just in a minute, I'm going to run back a lot of what those players and what head coach Kevin O'Connell and general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah had to say about the acquisition of TJ Hockenson. Also get to Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune columnist, here in a little bit. We talked some Hockenson. We talked primarily about college football, a little bit of Tennessee Volunteers talk for Chip. He's on top. He's on Rocky Top right now, with Tennessee being number one in the first college football playoff rankings, having a dream season that he did not see coming, but also kind of contextualizing that into, can the Gophers ever get to that unexpected spot as well? They've gotten, I don't say close, but they've had starts to the year a few times here where you could envision that, but it hasn't happened yet. Can they get to that moment at some point? Chip and I also talked about the Timberwolves, the struggles they've been having. Chip very much on record not being a D'Angelo Russell fan, so he and I had plenty to talk about in that regard. Also got to get to some World Series no-hitter talk at the end, as well as Gophers men's basketball preseason action. First, though, let's get to that TJ Hockenson content. I want to start with Vikings general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who addressed the media, like I said, and, was asked, obviously, kind of what led to this acquisition. How do you, I think it's a delicate balance, right? We look on paper, whenever there's a trade or a trade deadline, we look and we just look at kind of one for one or players' stats, what they bring to the table, things like that. The other thing you got to realize is, hey, this is a 6-1 team. They've got an obvious need with Irv Smith going out, and both Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell were quick to say they liked what Irv Smith had been doing lately, kind of getting better, so they're hoping his rehab goes well and he can come back later in the season. But you have to realize this is not just bringing in someone's stats. You're bringing in an entire player. You're bringing in someone who we want to fit into a system, into a scheme. You want someone who's going to be able to get up to speed quickly, especially in the middle of the season. So Kwesi Adofo-Mensah addressed all of those things, but here was his kind of basic answer about what led to the trade and what they're hoping to get out of this.
Our personnel department is aggressive. They're always looking for different opportunities, ways to upgrade the team, but you always want to be careful. I think a team is a very delicate chemistry, and you want to make sure that you're not over-tweaking or overdoing anything. We're excited about what we have in the group that we have, so we try and be really judicious with our opportunities, and this just happened to be one of them. TJ is a great fit. He's an incredible player in both phases of the game. He's competitive. He fits into our culture. He also gives us a lot of great roster flexibility with his ability to do things in the run and pass game. So I think we were just excited about the opportunity. I think it embodies a lot of the themes that we've talked about, living in today and tomorrow and all those different things.
And I like that. And I think Chip Scoggins did a good job writing about it, too, for Thursday's paper, just kind of seizing the moment. Wasn't an exorbitant price to pay in terms of draft capital. They got the same number of picks back, just a little bit lower over those next couple of years. And they got a player who certainly seems like he helps them, and so that's a big key to it. Hockenson talked for about 9 minutes on Wednesday as well. I don't know how many times he said super excited, but it must have been, it was many, many times that he said super excited. It seemed like it was genuine, had a grin on his face. Obviously, a trade in the middle of the year is hard for a player. You got to learn new systems, you got to learn new schemes. But you go from a 1-6 team to a 6-1 team, to a team with a lot of offensive firepower. It's exciting for a player. It's daunting in the same breath. So I thought Hockenson's most interesting answer was when he was asked about kind of how he does get up to speed. What is there to learn? What is there to get adjusted to when you join a team basically in the middle of a week and you got to play in just a few days?
Yeah, I'm grinding. I got in last night. They gave me my iPad, and who knows? I'm trying to learn this offense as much as I can. Obviously there's a lot of ins and outs to it, but football's football. I've been in this will be my fourth offense now that I've been in throughout my career. And so just learning new terminology, I mean, football is, there's outside zone, there's schemes, there's route running, there's concepts, it's just what you call it. So it's really just learning a new language, and I'm trying to learn that as fast as I can for sure.
Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell was asked a similar question about, getting Hockenson up to speed, how he fits into the offense, and I'm sure he's excited about it. I'm sure O'Connell is just another piece, and just kind of thinking about it cerebrally, like what they've been seeing this year, how a high caliber tight end, a healthy high caliber tight end, can help them do some things in the offense. So here was O'Connell on kind of how they might deploy Hockenson, especially once Hockenson is fully up to speed.
When you look at our offensive skill group, and we've talked a lot, with you guys over the course of the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season, just how we're being defended. We see some new things. We see a lot of tactics to try to limit Justin's impact and Adam's impact and KJ as well as Irv in our back. So just adding a player of TJ's caliber in a moment where we're really kind of coming into our groove, and I see a fit with a lot of the things we try to do, a lot of the things route-wise, schematics, how we run the ball, his fit and, really, in his role in being a 1 of 11 to help us move the football. Situationally, I see some real opportunities for him, 3rd down, red zone, 2-minute, things like that. It's just a matter of bringing in a player here that we feel has tremendous upside in our offense. We are in the middle of the season, so we're going to try to not try to overload him. But at the same time, he's already proven to be able to handle a lot, and we'll just get him out on the practice field and see what we can have available to us this Sunday.
And that's probably the most exciting thing, right? Because the Vikings have a lot of playmakers now, and I think even before Irv Smith got hurt, you would have considered this an upgrade over Irv Smith, a guy who can do things both in the run game and the pass game. He's not a great run blocker, but I think he's a better run blocker than Irv Smith, so it's not obvious what you're trying to do when he's on the field. And when it's a passing situation, he's going to stress defenses differently, I think, than Irv Smith was, especially on some of those short to intermediate routes, the run after the catch, things like that. You can only guard so many people. You're going to leave something open if you're trying to shut down all of these different Vikings playmakers, and that's a different dimension now. Should make the passing game even more dynamic. The person leading that passing game, of course, Kirk Cousins, was asked about how he gets up to speed with a new player. I thought this was an interesting answer from Kirk Cousins, and just the work he's putting in already to try to get kind of on the same page and understand what he has with TJ Hockenson.
Players like TJ, I've been watching him on tape for a long time. I remember watching his tape when he was at Iowa. So, but there's no doubt some work to do. I asked our video guys yesterday, hey, can you put together a cut-up of his career touchdowns, his career 3rd down conversions, his tape from Iowa that got him drafted in the top 10. I want to see these things. I want to see him at his absolute best, see what he's done as a player, and that'll help me better understand him when I'm with him in the game.
And we'll see how it goes on Sunday at Washington. I mean, Washington's a better team than they were at the start of it. They've won 3 in a row. None of them have been particularly pretty, but you know what? None of these last 5 Vikings games have been particularly pretty either, and they keep winning. So it is a matchup between a couple of teams that are learning how to win this year, and I think small edges are going to count. We'll see how much Hockenson can influence this game. This is probably a move for, more later in the season as they get him more fully, engrossed into the offense. But it seems like he fits into the locker room and the culture. We'll see about that, but I don't think they would trade for somebody who they couldn't vouch for in that regard. So an exciting move for the Vikings, an exciting time for the Vikings as they try to take 6-1 and make it into an even more special season. We'll see where that gets them on Sunday.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
All right, let's bring in one of the happiest sports writers in North America right now, Chip Scoggins, columnist for the Star Tribune. And long before he was a journalist, long before he was a columnist, he was just a fan of sports, specifically the Tennessee Volunteers. And Chip, how are you feeling after the first college football playoff kind of ordering was announced earlier this week?
Yeah, I think you said it right. I'm the happiest sports writer in America. We always say unexpected success is one of the great thrills of being a sports fan. And, I'm only a fan of one team and one team only, and that's the Tennessee Vols. And, never in my wildest imaginations did I think this season was possible. I was hoping for a bowl game. I was hoping for 6-7 wins in a bowl game and progress. And to think that they are number one in the first playoff committee poll, it's been staggering. And it's so much so that I actually Googled where the playoffs are at.
Oh man, there you go. Okay.
How much tickets would be. I probably jinxed it. I probably should not have done that. We'll probably lose the rest of our games and I'll be miserable, but it's been fun. I mean, this whole season's just been, I watch the games anyway every year.
Sure.
And live and die with them, but this has been just remarkable.
Well, I was going to be my next question is when Tennessee has success like this, which hasn't happened for a long time, do you find yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop, or do you find yourself just like enjoying the ride as long as possible?
No, I'm like the tortured Minnesota sports fans. I'm conditioned to the bottom dropping out. We won a national title back in the late 90s.
Right.
It's been some dark ages. I know that's relative. I mean, Minnesota sports fans don't want to hear, we won a national title, 2 decades ago. I know the drought's been a little longer here, but yeah, it's we've gone through a lot of heartache and bad times, and to finally see you get the right coach, you get the right system, the right recruits, and just see the fan base come back and see Neyland Stadium rocking again like it was when I was a college student there, and just connecting with high school buddies on our group chat, more than I'm never being a fan of this team again. That's how it always is. Now it's like,
right.
It's just euphoric. So it's fun to feel like a fan again.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we don't, in this business, what we do, we don't really get that opportunity. You're just covering games and you're rooting for great stories and drama and all that.
Right.
But to have a team that you love and ride the roller coaster with, to have this season like this has just been it's been really a great time.
The Gophers had a start like this to a degree in 2019 and still had a really successful season at finishing with 11 wins. This year started out 4-0, had the kind of start that had fans envisioning this kind of run, right? Not just when it got really optimistic, people were thinking not just Big Ten West, thinking, hey, can you get into the national conversation at least, or things like that? Maybe we got ahead of ourselves a little bit. I don't know whatever it was. The 3-game losing streak followed for various reasons. Now they got the win against Rutgers, now back against Nebraska, where they're like 16-point favorite. Gophers like 16-point favorites at Nebraska, which tells you how far Nebraska has fallen and tells you how much people still do think of this year's Gophers team. As you think about this year's Gophers team and kind of what happened, how they kind of hit that lull in the middle of the year, and how they kind of how they can recalibrate. How do you think about the season as it stands right now?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know if I had the national picture in mind, but I thought this was the year after you start 4-0. I think most people said they are the team to beat in the Big Ten West because they were so dominant. It was so different than what we had seen under PJ Fleck in the non-conference, and even I'll include that first Big Ten game against Michigan State because they've traditionally just kind of played these games close to the vest. They haven't always looked impressive. They just run the ball a million times, and whatever the score is, if they win, that's all that matters. And so it felt different the first month, but it was a false insecurity because there were underlying issues that didn't get exposed until they started playing good teams, teams in their weight class. And so, to me, I look at this season, they need to salvage the rest of the season. Illinois is going to win the West. But the Gophers need to salvage this season and win some games. So you can say the record was good. But they didn't achieve, the ultimate goal of winning the West. But I look at, even this Rutgers game, it fell back to run Mo Ibrahim a lot and don't rely on the pass game. And PJ Fleck said this week that, they throw some interceptions when they try to throw the ball down the field. And he didn't want to risk that and have that game possibly turn around when they didn't need to. So they're back to not trusting the passing game.
Right.
Which is not what you want to hear. And I don't know I think it's a combination of factors, but the wide receiver core is just not, it has not developed in the way that I thought it would, in the way that it looked like it would in that Michigan State game. It's been really a problem area for him, and that's something PJ is going to have to address in a big way during the recruiting season.
No, yeah, and they lost. I mean, one thing we kind of forget about, or I'm sure they didn't forget about this, but is masked when they are winning is, Chris Ottman-Bell goes out, late in the non-conference play, and looks like they're going to not miss a beat because they, against Michigan State, you're right, the receivers were great, but I still do wonder how much that is playing into this. And just had little things along the way. You had, Morgan was out for, a game and a half. You missed Mo in that Purdue game where he probably would have made a big difference. I mean, one player in a good program shouldn't make that much of a difference, but it seems like it has in certain cases.
And that's the that's the excuse I don't really think flies anymore, because this is year 6 of Fleck's tenure, and by year 6, if you lose your number one receiver, it shouldn't all fall apart. Right. You should have established some depth, quality depth, to where you can mitigate losses. Like, now, Mo Ibrahim is a great college football player, one of the best running backs in their program history. So I'm not saying you're not going to miss him, but I think they rushed for 47 yards or something like that against Purdue. I mean, they couldn't run the ball at all. And some of that was they got dominated along the line of scrimmage with their offensive line, which really struggled in a couple of games there, Purdue and Illinois. So it's been a combination of things. The line hasn't come together, or had a couple of bad games. Wide receiver core, the quarterback position hasn't played as well as it should. The defense really fell apart there against Penn State. So it's disappointing based off what you saw the first month, because you thought with all this veteran experience they had coming back, and this being year 6 of Fleck's tenure, that this was going to be the year that they, should go win the West.
Yeah. And it's, like we've talked about too, it doesn't get easier next year.
Not next year.
when Michigan and Ohio State come back on the schedule, when, and frankly, a lot of these skill position guys who have been here forever, say whatever you want to say about Tanner Morgan, seems like the best option they have right now. Mo is definitely their best option right now. Ottman-Bell was definitely their best receiver. Like, those guys are all gone next year.
Yeah. And you're adding Michigan and Ohio State, and you're going to North Carolina, and you're going to have this with a first year starting quarterback. I assume it's going to be Calic Manis going through this. So it's next year is a gauntlet of games when you see their schedule and how they stack up. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of the local optimism has shifted to the Vikings, and, been for good reason. They're 6-1 and, made a good trade deadline move, I thought, on Tuesday to get TJ Hockenson, someone who, a tight end maybe doesn't always move the needle, but it was a position of need. I think even before Irv Smith Jr. got hurt, I felt like it was a position of need. And now with him on injured reserve, it definitely is. Didn't seem like it cost all that much in terms of draft capital, because they got a couple picks back from Detroit, which could be, reasonably high 4th round picks. What did you make of what you saw on Tuesday?
I thought it absolutely moved the needle, because to me it was, we've heard competitive rebuild from Kwesi. Yes. And to me, this is an acknowledgement that, things have changed. You're 6-1, Green Bay's falling apart. You look around the league, there's not a lot of great teams. NFC, I mean, Philadelphia is clearly the team that stands out right now, but the Vikings are, have the second best record and really haven't even started to hit on all cylinders yet on offense. And so this was to me, an aggressive move by a regime that said, you know what, let's not just sit pat and try to improve internally. This is a need. The offense needs another threat as a pass catcher. And so I give Kwesi a lot of credit. You're right that the compensation is not, wasn't extravagant. I mean,
No.
you're basically swapping a second round pick for a fourth round pick. And yes, you look at the numbers, the second round pick should be, is more valuable than that fourth. But I like the fact that they recognized the moment and said, you know what, let's go for it. Let's try to improve this team and see what we can do this year.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think the easy thing to do always is, hey, we're 6-1. Let's not mess with what's going right. Let's not push all the chips in, so to speak. And they don't think they didn't have to push in all the chips for this move, which was nice. They didn't give up a first round pick and nothing,
Sure.
Didn't get anything back. So it doesn't feel like that kind of move. Didn't have to do a whole lot of salary cap maneuvering right now, just because he's still on that rookie contract. So it made a lot of sense from that standpoint. But I like what you said, recognizing the moment, recognizing that this year is probably going better than even internal projections might have thought. Like, you thought the Vikings might be 4-3 at this point, 3-4 at this point. And you certainly thought the Packers were going to be better than they are right now.
Well, yeah, if you gave him truth serum, I don't know that many people in there say they're going to be 6-1 at this point. And
I picked them to go 7-10 this year. I don't think that's going to, unless they go 1-9 the rest of the way, which seems unlikely, Chip.
well, that's why, I think I said 9-8, the old going out on the limb 9-8 prediction.
Right.
Because there's just so many unknowns that new coach and new system and all this. And could you squeeze more out of the veterans that you have? And that's the other thing. I got to imagine if you're Harrison Smith and Zadarius Smith and Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen and these guys that they don't have 7 more
Right.
years, here, and you're not going to be 6-1 every year in the NFL. I mean, this is one of those years where it seems like things are breaking their way, whether it's winning close games, the injury situation, although they're dealing with it a little bit now, who you play in their injury situation, what's going on around you with the Packers and teams, that this is when that moment presents itself to you, you got to take advantage. And I feel like they're recognizing that and like, you know what, let's bolster this. Let's try to improve this offense because it needs some help. And let's just see how far this thing can go.
Yeah, and it would be hard to imagine what the offense might look like, too, without Irv Smith and without Hockenson. I mean, they'd be staring at a lot of weeks in a row where they just don't really have a playmaking threat at that position.
Yeah, no. And it'd been interesting to see, let's say Irv doesn't get hurt. Are you still looking to upgrade there? Because he wasn't giving you a lot.
No.
He just was not a big part of like we thought he was going to be. I mean, we saw him in camp. You're like, oh, he's going to be, Kevin O'Connell's going to really maximize his skill set, and it just didn't work out. The injuries and just, it's a disappointment. I got to imagine, now that you have Hockenson, that this likely means that Irv's not going to be back after this year.
I think so.
I don't think you can have both of them. So,
no.
This is, they needed another guy to stretch the field. And you look at his yards per catch is, really impressive.
Yeah.
And so
like an 81-yard catch this year, a 58-yard catch. I mean, that's for a tight end. Like that's game breaking type stuff.
Yeah. And I saw stats where his yards after catch are, he's just a playmaker. And so I got to imagine that's going to help, Jefferson.
Yeah.
It's going to, I thought Dalvin looked like Dalvin of old Sunday against Arizona. He looked like he had his burst back. And so I want to see this offense kind of really find that gear and be more explosive than what we've seen, because it's they've made critical plays when they needed them and had critical drives, but just the consistency hasn't been there.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear too. We're both out at Vikings Access. I'll be interested to hear during the week if this is a guy that a lot of these defensive players played against twice a year for the last few years. I wonder if they will give a ringing endorsement of, hey, this guy's hard to stop. This guy's hard to bring down. This is a guy that we want on our offense as opposed to having to go and try to stop him, because that factors in sometimes as well. Chip, last thing while I got you here, I talked about D'Angelo Russell extensively on, I think it was Tuesday's show, going into that game against Phoenix, and then he did not exactly light things up against the Suns. I think he only played 23 minutes. I think he was a -20 in that game.
Yeah, -20.
I made 1 or 2 shots, just whatever. I'm having a hard time parsing blame for why this starting 5 just doesn't seem to be clicking yet. And some of it probably is still just, it's 8 games in, and you put someone like Rudy Gobert into that lineup, it's going to be a learning curve for a lot of these guys. McDaniels is new to the starting lineup. Towns is playing a new position. I get that, but Russell, when he struggles, has been a common denominator here for a few years. Where do you break this down as to why this team is 4-4 and just not looking like a whole lot of fun right now?
Yeah. You watched the game last night, and they're frustrating to watch.
Yes.
As I tweeted out, I'd rather watch the backups at this point because they run the offense, they take good shot, they share the ball. They outscore the other bench.
Yeah.
And when you put the offense back in, it's just disjointed and clunky and too much isolation, hero ball. And, Russell, I put so much on the point guard, and that's probably unfair, but he had a couple of bad turnovers there late last night where they got the ball, they got the lead down to 2, the deficit down to 2, and they have just turnover after turnover and just not getting good shots and just carelessness.
And that's when they brought all the starters back in.
Well, that's when the starters back. Yeah. And I understand. I hear what Chris Finch is saying, like, hey, they have to work through this. Like they're jeopardizing wins and losses because they're trying to make this thing work. And I sort of understand that. Sure. But I'm also of the mind of Naz Reid was one of the best players on the court last night for them. And he just sat there as the fourth quarter unfolded when they could have used him. And so, Russell just, I'm on record. I go back to that playoff game was when you can't trust a max player in the decisive game to be on the court in the fourth quarter. I think you have your answer. And my opinion hasn't changed.
So what do you do? I mean, I don't think you don't give up on this starting 5 yet at 8 games in, because you got to still figure out how this grouping can work. Russell's an expiring contract, but I don't think you want to bring in another bad contract. You got to pay Ant eventually. You've got Towns and Gobert making a ton of money. McDaniels has got to get paid at a certain point here too. So, I mean, does a bench roll suit him better? I'm just trying to figure out like how they can use him in a way that they can still get any kind of value out of him this year, while also recognizing that he's not part of their long-term plan. So it's a weird situation. I thought they could try to make it work going into the year, and it just doesn't seem like it's working right now.
Yeah, it's not working, but you're right with the, all the different factors and, putting them on the bench is that I don't know if that's going to accomplish what you're trying to get. I mean, I keep thinking, I look at their talent and at some point it should click, right?
Yeah.
And we knew that it was going to be clunky to start with because of all the change and everything that, that this upheaval that you've done. But so you have to stick with it and hope that it, starts to gel, starts to make sense, starts to has more chemistry and rhythm and, efficiency to the offense and Russell's a part of that. But man, these growing pains are hard to watch for a team that's trying, because it is. And I understand that part, but some of the, we've seen some just lack of effort stuff too, not getting back on defense, not running the floor, taking bad shots. That drives me crazy. I don't know if that's learning to play together or if that's just bad habits.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I hope Finch, can weed that out and still try to make this starting collection work as best as it can. Because it was a big gamble, right? We knew it was going to be a gamble, and we knew it was not going to look probably pretty from the start. I just didn't think it would look this rough, to be honest with you.
Well, it looks like it's wearing on Finch a little bit too. You just look at him, you watch him coaching, you watch him post game. Doesn't seem like he has the answer yet. I think he wants to see more. He's kind of given them the blueprint, and they're just not being able to follow it right now. And that's got to be frustrating for a coach.
Well, look at the players' body language too.
Yeah,
you can see the frustration out there, and so maybe privately they thought it was going to be easier than this. Because they do have individual talent, and it does look good on paper. You think it's going to work right away. So maybe they had a little false sense of security too. That we're adding, a great defensive player, and sure, Cat can play anywhere because he's talented.
Right.
It doesn't always, doesn't work that way. It's still, and so, Ant looks like he's more comfortable playing when it's small,
Yeah, he does.
So it's a mess right now. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, Finch said last night, he's like, yeah, the starting group has just not been good.
No, the worst thing he said was doesn't seem like they're any closer to figuring it out right now than they were at the start of the year, which that would be like, hey, if you can see signs of progress, like I think with the Vikings, like nobody would say they're playing to their fullest potential, but you see glimpses of it along the way. You see how the offense has, maybe made some strides as the year goes on, looks more comfortable with a lot of the new system. This just doesn't seem like they've made those adjustments yet.
Well, and the alarming part about that, Mike, is like these are veterans.
Yeah.
Right. These are not young players trying to figure this out. So yes, it's new and some of them are playing out in new positions and all that, but they're veterans. This is, you should be able to make adjustments and figure out how to play with someone and share the ball and run back on defense and keep guys in front of you when you're playing defense. So that's the kind of stuff that's driving you crazy. And so, I don't know. It's again, it's 8 games in, so you have to give a little more time. And we've seen teams take half a year to kind of figure things out and then get on a run. So I think in their mind, that's probably what they're hoping for, but they just want to.
I need to see something at least by 20 games. It makes you think, okay, they're on the right track. And you know what? The next 12, they got some tough games. They got the Bucks, they got the Suns again, they got the Cavaliers, they got the Warriors. I mean, now they're starting to play the good teams, and now we're going to really see what they're made of.
Well, that was my thought was like, okay, this is going to be a work in progress, but they're playing kind of a soft launch. And so they have some, they'll be able to figure this out and win. Well, they haven't figured it out and they're not winning.
No.
So it's kind of a double whammy.
It is. We'll see if they're any better. Bucks are up next. That will be a tough one. Everything we got going on, Chip Scoggins will be there to write about it. Chip, appreciate the time today, and we'll do this again soon.
All right, Mikey. Thank you, man.
Good stuff from Chip, as always. And I was like to give a shout out to Chris Hine, too. Good piece today on the starters for the Timberwolves, maybe taking a cue from the bench players. And there's a game. There's not a game until tomorrow night, but that game against Milwaukee. So they've got some tough ones on the schedule coming up. They got Milwaukee, Cleveland. They got Phoenix again. And Memphis in the next 6. So they got to figure this out relatively quickly. You don't want to see those losses pile up. You'd like to see them start to figure this out sooner rather than later, and we'll see how quickly they are able to get to that. Speaking of getting to that, let's get to the cooler. A couple quick things at the end. This wouldn't have been a footnote a long time ago, but World Series no-hitter. A combined no-hitter, but a no-hitter nonetheless. Houston no hits Philadelphia in Game 4 of the World Series to tie that series 2 games apiece. There's been a lot of blowouts in this series lately, but maybe Game 5 will be a little bit different. This is just the second ever no-hitter in World Series play. Obviously, the first one going way back to Don Larson's perfect game in 1956. It's been almost 70 years since we've had a no-hitter in the Major League Baseball World Series, so that is pretty cool, and we'll see how Game 5 goes with this series tied now 2-2. Gophers men's basketball beat St. Olaf as they should, but that game was a little dicey. It was tied at halftime. Gophers missing a lot of starters, got things going a little bit in the second half, so we'll see how that progresses as the year goes along, as well as they get some guys healthy, as they get to playing with each other a little bit more. That will do it for today. Should have Ben Gessling on Friday's show to talk more Vikings. Probably stay away a little bit from TJ Hockenson since we've talked so much about him, but there's plenty more to chew on with this 6-1 team heading into Washington. That'll do it for me today. I'm Michael Rand. Thanks for joining me. Back at it tomorrow.